than many people show up, so congratulations to y'all. I'm Abigail. I just want to tell the story of how this happened really fast. So I was browsing the Iowa State subreddit like the one time a year I do, and I happened to come across his post asking if anyone would be interested in Bionicle's lore presentation. And as the head of the Stoner Club, we love this kind of shit. So I was like, absolutely, we will definitely sponsor this event, and here we are. So I'm just here to plug Normal a little bit. I'm the president. We care a lot about cannabis reform, and if you want to meet fellow like-minded cannabis reform enthusiasts, we have a meeting next week, this location at 6:30. So without further ado, here's Noah and Cody to give you 90 minutes of Bionicle lore. Enjoy, Redders.
Well, it's real. It's real.
It's real. It's here.
We did not lie. This is actually about Bionicle.
No. To give you a little background.
Give us a little background.
So we, at spring break, during our PowerPoint night, in a Airbnb trapped with other 30 people, decided to do a Bionicle lecture aided by PowerPoint. It ran over the usual 15-minute time limit to 90 minutes long. And this allowed us to go to bed at a reasonable time because half of the audience who couldn't hang fell asleep. But our captive audience, you can hang! All right. Also, this will be going up on YouTube. You can type in pp.fun and that will lead you to our channel. That's real. I pay for that URL. Now, we'd like to do some things. Normal is allowing us to use their room. They're the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Law. We stand for that. That's awesome. And it's also really funny that the Weed Reform Club is sponsoring Bionicle. We'd also like to thank trans rights. Without the trans women who dedicate their lives to recording Bionicle lore, we would not be able to do the research that we did. So, if you play the female character in video games, have interest in feminine clothing, and quote, wish you were a girl, then I have some news for you. You might just enjoy Bionicle lore.
And with introductions set aside, welcome to the expansive lore of Bionicle.
Gather strength! Of the Bionicle!
Alright. So what the heck are these things?
Okay, so Lego Bionicle is a Lego toy line from 2001. It started off as a spin-off of the Technic system as their construction line, a combination of construction toys and action figures. With this, they plan to do some kind of story-based franchise that could save them from bankruptcy, because they were going into bankruptcy, and save them, it did. It's based off of reusing a bunch of parts from this. This is a Throwbot. It's like a Bionicle, but it fucking sucks. Sorry if you're afraid of the word fuck, we're going to use it. Now, a Bionicle is not a given person, object, or species. It stands for Biological Chronicle. It is not this man.
No. Nothing is a Bionicle except in our real world, it is a product that you can buy in stores now, and not anymore.
Due to this expansive lore that they gave it, the Bionicle lore rivals the Bible, if not completely trumps it, and kicks it to the curb. And it's insane.
You'll see. So we get to the beginning, where we begin on Spherus Magna.
It's like this giant Mad Max planet, deserts everywhere, random jungles, people are fighting each other. There's two species, the Agorite and Glatorian, split into 8 elemental tribes. They mostly gain resources by fighting each other in gladiatorial combat or through trade of weapons. Now they've enhanced themselves biomechanically like a cyberpunk kind of way, which is why they look like Lego.
We kind of gotta like say a little bit more, so then like kind of like just persist in civilization, you know, as you do, until like a Cthulhu / like cosmic horror entity called Anona just says, I'm going to take away your ability to dream.
Now, this is very important to the Agorian Glatorian because if they don't dream, they kind of start going crazy and genociding each other, creating the first genocide of Bionicle lore in canon. There's more than one!
And this is where one man in particular, the first run through this, lost his mind and never found it again.
Now, because of this kind of mass dreaming plague, a new species of Agorian Glatorian evolved, called the Great Beings. Now, they were smarter and more powerful than the regular inhabitants of the planet. And because of this, they started to experiment on ways to fight any kind of threat like a Nona. And then, a tribe of Agorian Glatorian discovered a mysterious pool of liquid metal called liquidized protodermis, which came from the core of the planet. Now, this liquidized protodermis gave them special powers and allowed them to use great weapons of mass destruction and skyrocket their technological advancement.
And remember, we've gone through genocide and the entire new evolution of a species. This is slide
and
number
the
1.
Industrial Revolution.
Slide number 1. Who owned these as a kid?
Let's go! You were 8 in 2008!
That's awesome. I was in the 2nd grade. So now we get to the core war. Because of the said liquidized protodermis, gosh, it's like I've been in class all day. A war broke out over control of this. So through a lot of very unethical experimentation,
i.e. genocide,
there's number 2. The Great Beings ended up making some giant killer robots called Batera to keep the war from like ripping the planet apart. That didn't really work. The planet gets split into thirds later on.
So eventually, in order to stop this war that their kind of all-powerful killing robots are failing to stop, they create a giant robot to explore the universe and scan different planets in order to find the cause for war and make sure another war does not break out on Spherus Magna ever again. The robot takes off and the planet splits into 3 separate parts, from the core of the planet being raided. This is Boda Magna, the jungle planetoid, Aqua Magna, which is a giant sea planetoid, and Barra Magna, which is a giant desert planet devoid of any plant life except a few explosive, like grenade-like thingies that they use to kill each other, because, you know, you gotta leave those.
Visual aid for the core war from a cool comic strip panel. And now we get to the Matoran universe.
So, to maintain this great spirit robot that the inhabitants called Mata Nui, the Great Beings created what is essentially a brand new species out of liquid protodermis. These are the Matoran, and they have different elemental abilities to help them work on different parts of the Great Spirit robot. Some Matoran can evolve into these beings called Toa, which defend the Great Spirit robot from invaders, any part of the Great Spirit robot that, you know, betrays itself, like, I guess you could call that a disease. And once these Toa have served their destiny, they become Turaga, which are these village elders that help lead the leftover Matoran villagers. Now, there are many other species in the Matoran universe that like form this entire big ecosystem, but most of them use these things called Kanohi masks, which are special masks that give some of them powers, but also act as a battery that keeps them alive. Now, one of the Great Beings, Velika, decides to do a little trolling. And these Matoran robot worker bee drones are given free will by Velika, and he hides himself as one of them, hoping one day he can reveal himself as the person who gave them free will and become like their god king and like some kind of cult type setup. And by giving them free will, he causes possibly the end of the Matoran universe. This is the Great Spirit robot scanning a bunch of planets. Whoa, ain't that rad?
That was taken from Google Images. Anyway, who owned these as a kid?
Yeah, who owned these as a kid?
Probably none of us, because 9/11 was about to happen.
Yeah, this happened in 2001.
We'll skip past that. Anyway, so these are the Toa Mata. They were created by the Order of Mata Nui to become the ultimate definitive defenders of the Great Spirit Robot, ergo the Matoran universe. They're unique because they were never Matorans to begin with. They were and always will be Toa. They were trained by Hydraxon, the weapons master of Mata Nui, because of course they have one of those. And then later on, they were sealed away in the canisters, which you can buy them in stores now, but set to never return until they are needed. Wow, I went through that whole one. Let's go.
Now, anyways, speaking of them being needed, there's these other defenders. I guess you could call them the white blood cells of the Matoran universe, the Great Spirit Robot, to keep things in order, in check. It's a very Osmosis Jones type situation in the Matoran universe, and these are an extra line of defense, and they hold this power of shadow. Now, after many conflicts and genocides, the Makuta get angry that they don't get the credit that the Toa do for defending the universe. So one of them, Makuta Pterodax, the main bad guy of this whole thing, leads an insurrection within the Brotherhood to lead it to greatness. And then he teamed up with the Dark Hunters, which are essentially like a mercenary version of the Illuminati that control a bunch of things in the universe and are evil because of free will. And he has his compatriot, Makuta Kojal, create this virus that infects the Great Spirit Robot and makes it crash into Aqua Magna, that like water-like planetoid moon on Barra Magna, and enter this great, long, comatose sleep. Now, this causes those Toa canisters we talked about to malfunction and launch into the ocean. And this kind of damages their life support system, so the Toa start to lose their memories and fall apart. Boop.
Now we get to the second movie. So, if anyone remembers anything from that, good for you. Anyone else? Good for you. So, the Metru Nui is the brain of Mata Nui, and that kind of is like this awesome, thriving metropolis. It's the brain of the robot, and the Matoran just still kind of do their thing. But then, we get Toa Likan, who is then betrayed by some other Toa who turn.
Nadiki and Tuyed, one of them becomes a Dark Hunter. The other one just starts killing people in order to do some kind of cult ritual with this thing called the Nui Stone. That's not important until Infinity War. Yes, there's an Infinity War. And in order to combat this, and Makuta Pterodax, who is also in the city causing mischief by creating an Orwellian, city-state in Metru Nui by disguising itself as its president and mind controls the inhabitants into passivity. Likan decides to fight 1984 after finding out the Makoki Stone that he defends. The Makoki Stone is just it's an important thing. It doesn't matter what it does. It's just wanted. It's a MacGuffin. You don't need to know what it does. It's just, if bad guy gets it, it's bad. So he decides, being the only Toa that's good left, to create a brand new team of Toa by empowering some Matoran in the city.
What? Oh, did they get
yeah.
out of order? Oh, well, because it kind of goes together. So,
Yeah.
This is the third movie. So, they end up saving the day with the Mask of Time, which sounds important. It's probably the least important mascot of them all. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I don't know. Bakama just kind of makes it and uses it the one time, and it's never seen from or heard from again. But yeah, so then the Toa Metru are just kind of led on a wild goose chase by Duma, which you'll see him in the next slide. I was trying to point to him as if he was there. It's that guy. I thought he was kind of funny there.
He is silly. I like him.
That man committed genocide. But then, he just kind of leads them on this wild goose chase. In the middle of this, they get kind of infected by this poison, which turns them into the Toa Hordika, where they are part rock sheep.
Rahi.
Rahi, sorry. part rocky, where that's kind of like their monstrous, like kind of inhabitants, like they're another species.
They're the animals, so
yeah.
and they lose their elemental powers. And this is really bad since Makuta Pterodax, the main bad guy who's hiding as that silly guy, is trapping all the inhabitants in these little pods that you could get in the toys that erase their memory because he's trying to make like a, army of unknowing slaves. But luckily, the Toa Hordika are rescued by the Rahaga, which are another former Toa team that was led by Makuta Pterodax. All right.
That's like the guy.
And they're there to save them. Now, they admit that they themselves, the Rahaga, cannot get rid of their beast half. But the Toa, since they're freshly turned, can if they meet this sentient Rahi beast person named Kitongu. So anyways, they do that and it happens, and this movie is literally nothing.
However, they do use the power of the Rotuka spinner.
It's true!
That the guy in the ad says is really funny. It's just literally a little flywheel that they just kind of fire off the back.
Anyways, they go to the destroyed Toa Metru city, or the Toa Metru turned normal. They get back to the city. They rescue all of the guys in pods. They bring them up to the surface since as a defense mechanism to hide itself on different planets while it's scanning them, the Great Spirit robot can just start an island on its face and become continents. So they go up there, and in order to unlock all these pods, they have to give up their Toa powers and become Turaga in order to lead them and start them off with a new life. And they give them this fake little story about how there's this evil Makuta, Master of Shadows, who beat the Master of Light, Mata Nui, and they start their new life on the island. Now, we get to the Toa Mata for real, the 2001. This is where the story begins in real life. Wow. So after a year of ceasefire between the former Toa Metru and Makuta Pterodax, these mysterious canisters appear ashore on the island of Mata Nui. And they hold these Toa Mata, elemental warriors that are sent to destroy Makuta Pterodax and wake up the Great Spirit robot. And they have to collect these 36 masks, which you could buy in stores now, in order to get golden masks, which you can buy in stores now, in order to defeat Makuta Pterodax in his lair. They are opposed by the corrupted Rahi beasts, which were infected by a virus by Makuta Pterodax to make them evil, even though they're normally kind of somewhat peaceful. And they can also throw these masks on Toa to control them, which happens to Toa Liwa, who always gets mind controlled by any mind control plot. That's just a thing. It's not important enough for us to cover.
I can pop in. So then, all of these adventures are told and kept by the chronicler himself, the Tamatoran named Takua. And, he has his gathered friends, oh yay, it's the same. But they are known as the Chronicler's Company, and, they might seem a little familiar once we get into that later. But, Takua's a little different. He's one of the red guys, but he has a blue mask, and that's really important, but we'll get there. But then, eventually Makuta Pterodax, he lures the Toa in to make their powers, kind of like, I gotta take out the good guys. So, he's got this rusty Kanohi Hao, the same one as this guy, Toa Tahu. And, they kind of like form like a threat, but then the Toa Mata fight it off. As they always
They all blast some kind of elemental energy beam at him, and he disappears with a vague threat. And this is the Mata Nui online game. This was some flash game on a website, and this carried the entire story. This was not a movie.
And then we get the Borok.
So these earthquakes hit the island of Mata Nui, and the Matoran is finding this hive, and he can only talk about this cleansing that's going to happen. So Makuta Pterodax used this virus to prematurely awaken these little ball guys. They're kind of like Bakugan, called the Borok. And they're meant to usually like clean the surface of the robot once it's grown continents and it's ready to like leave the planet. And these start eating through all of the villages, although they don't really hurt any of the villagers. But if the villagers try to stop them, they throw these Krata masks at them, which mind control them. This is our second mind control thing. And these masks also connect the Borok to their queen's consciousness. And it also happens to Toa Liwa, the guy who gets mind controlled all the time. That's just a thing that happens. Huh? So the Chronicler's Company, while the Toa are like dealing with this thing, are led by Takua to defend the villages. And the Toa don this like power armor made by this rock guy, a Poematoran named Nuparu. And they go to the Borok's underground hive to fight the Barog, which are the queens controlling all of the Borok swarms. So anyways, they get rid of the armor that you can buy in stores now in order to be one with nature, use their elemental powers again, and like blast the queens, etc., etc. But in this blast, in this fight, they knock themselves into pools of liquid protodermis. Something so powerful, it can kill anyone it touches. And the Toa Mata become no more.
Oh man. Here's some Borok. Here's some Borok. Here's some Borok. I had that one.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Not the white one.
That's not street cred.
And they come back as the Toa Nuva, bitches! Evolves them into this new metallic armor. They can suddenly use all of each other's powers. Their elemental powers are increased. The Toa Nuva hold the power to destroy any enemy that comes to the island forevermore. But since they defeated the queens, this awakens another threat, the Borok Call, which only exists because LEGO wanted to sell more Borok. They have no real importance in the plot other than like they steal these elemental symbols that are now tied to the Toa's powers.
The Nuva symbols.
The Nuva symbols even, and that's not really truly important. So they beat them, and then peace ensues. And they propose a Koli tournament, which is like Bionicle soccer, in order to celebrate a time of peace in this non-stop war against Makuta.
I'd argue it's closer to hockey.
It is.
But anyway, the Toa Nuva. Pretty fancy. Yeah. Now the first movie.
The Mask of Fucking Lights! So this is the one that people know.
This is the one you know. It's on YouTube, 60 frames per second. Looks kind of gross because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is where I can definitely do it because I watched this like a couple months ago. So we get Takua and Jaller, and they're just playing the Koli tournament, and like earlier in the day, they just kind of like were playing around in a volcano and found this really cool shiny mask. That's the Mask of Light. And then he just kind of like stuffs it in his back, and then after they win, it kind of falls out, it starts shining on him, and then he kicks it over to his pal Jaller, and then it shines on him, and they go, oh my gosh, he's the guy! Like Spy Kids 3.
It is Spy Kids 3.
The guy. So then they go, oh, you are the herald of the seventh Toa, the Toa of Light. So because of that, they kind of get like sent on a little journey where we get to go see all the new toys.
Yes.
Yeah. And then like throughout that we meet all the Toa. Oh my gosh, they're so cool.
Now Makuta Pterodax is really afraid of this. Since he holds the power of shadow and this mask, the Kanohi Avoki, holds the power of light, this is a big fucking threat for him. So he sends his Arakshi soldiers, which are powered by Krata brain slugs, not to be confused with Krana brain slugs, which are the last things to happen, to motorbike out to them and kill them. And with the help from the Toa, like they make it to the location. Jaller fucking dies, I guess. Skill issue, etc., etc. Takua gets angry. He dons the Mask of Light. He becomes the seventh Toa of Light, the Taku Nuva, and then enters Makuta Pterodax's lair for a final battle to revenge his dead friend.
That's Jaller. That's not Jaller. That's Takua. That was a test for you guys. You had no idea what Jaller looked like anyway. But no, that's Takua. That's like the guy for now. And then there's the box art for the movie.
He's a Christ-like figure. We're going to be running into a lot of those.
Yeah, probably the lowest tier Christ-like figure we can talk about.
Yeah.
But we gotta get through the time slip first.
All right, slight pause. So Takua has that blue mask. We'll talk about that right now. He's not actually a Tamatoran, which means a fire guy. He's actually an Avmatoran, a light guy. So, light! So, because these Matoran of light had the power of light, the Makuta wanted to kind of, do as they do, genocide them, in order to destroy any chance that they could be overthrown. So the Order of Mata Nui, the secret club that defends the giant robot, decided to do some little trolling again and diasporate them amongst all of the places on the Great Spirit robot, but hidden as different tribes. But because of this being done pretty hastily and their powers not being at full charge, they look a little weird sometimes, like with Takua's blue mask, which should be red. So the entire population of the Matoran's universe have their memory wiped of this 1 year period, creating a time slip. Also, the Avmatoran are like stem cells, and they can be transformed into different things if need be, including the Borok, meaning that the Toa were killing some guys that were real people at some point. They just brush past that, and I think that's really fucked up.
Genocide number.
What?
We lose count at this point.
Also, it's a good time to mention.
Pause.
If you watch the version of the movie on YouTube, you'll notice that some of the names are different from the ones that we're using. This is because Lego was a bit racist.
Happens to the best of us. Never us.
Yeah, so a bunch of things in Bionicle are just Maori words. And the Maori people kind of got pissed that some holy words were being used. Like, the Matoran's original name was the
Tohunga.
Joller's original name was
Jala.
So the names were changed, Lego wrote standards, and they promised to never be racist ever again. And they tried. They really, really did. And because of this, the vague tribal theming of Bionicle kind of fades from this point on to be more sci-fi and vaguely Latin, weirdly, like with the Glatorians, which were introduced later on.
Liquidized protodermis was not conceived of in 2001.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
So whoopsie.
Yeah, so back to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So then Makuta Pterodax and Takanuva are they're locked in battle for the, what is foreseeably the fate of the Matoran universe. And then, ends up reminiscing, kind of having an analogous final battle to the little Coley game we played at the start, because, Takanuva's weapon is essentially the same stick they used to play that game.
Yeah, and they literally say, "Let's play a game of Coley."
It's
very silly.
It's pretty silly. So then Takanuva does a kamikaze attack against Makuta Pterodax, and they both land into liquid protodermis. They fuse together into a being of light and shadow, Takutanuva. And this is a perfectly ambivalent to good and evil, light and shadow, incredibly powerful being. And they end up, what do? Open up the way to the abandoned city of Metru Nui, the new haven for the inhabitants of the Mata Nui Island.
And then the gate closes on them and the fusion ends, and it turns out he wasn't that powerful anyways. Takanuva comes back to life, he revives Joller, yay!
He's back.
And, this would have killed Makuta Pterodax, but as it turns out, the Makuta as a species evolved to be made out of gas, called antidermis. And essentially every Makuta is a ghost. that possesses a robotic body, and once that robotic body is destroyed, they can just slurp out of it and go into a new body. But if they're like gassed for too long, they die, etc., etc. Lots of murder in Bionicle.
Take note of that for later. This is what it looked like. It didn't look like this in the movie though. It was kind of odd.
This is the ultimate life form. This is peak physical performance. You may not like it, but this is it.
Yeah, it is. I noticed the set numbers in the bottom. But yeah, so then after all that happens, we get some Skakti criminals from the Dark Hunters escape from prison that they've been sealed away in, and they are intent on stealing the Kanohi Ignika, the Mask of Life. Not to be confused with the Toa.
The Kanohi Avoki, the Mask of Light.
It does get confusing, but that mask, the Mask of Life, can jumpstart the robot if it ever dies, and it kind of is.
Yeah, that entire like crash into a whole fucking planet is kind of killing the robot. So it's very important that the heroes retrieve this important mask and, you know, give it a little juice.
Yeah, so then the Skakti, now going by the name Paraka, which is a slur in the Matoran language, meaning despicable.
Like, literally, in universe, this is a slur.
And this is when I roll up the sleeves to say, they made a rap using the word Paraka a lot.
Yo, Paraka was the first thing kids heard from Bionicle in 2006. And that's an in-universe slur, baby.
I implore you to look up the Paraka ad on YouTube.
So, because they're also another like multicolored team of 6 guys, it's only natural to assume that they're Toa, which are also multicolored teams of 6 guys. And they go to Toa Nui, which is this island on top of the heart of the robot. Karza Nui.
Because everything has a name.
Everything has a name. And they enslave the local Matoran, including Velika. This sounds important.
It's not.
To build a fortress. The Toa Nuva, the good guys that we just met, go to investigate, but they also get imprisoned by the Paraka. And the Kanohi Ignika, which has the Mask of Life has a life on its own, it can think, sends its power out to 6 Matoran, which were the previous members of the Chroniclers Company who fought off Borok in the Mata Nui online game and animations that we just talked about. And minus Takua, since he's already a Toa.
Which is when we get to the Toa Ignika. Oh, wow. Not to be confused with Ignika, which is the Mask of Life again. But yeah, so then they're the ones that have to fight the Paraka and free the Toa Nuva. So they end up defeating them, but then the Mask of Life kind of just gets lost in a pit. So we do have to go down into the pit, which is filled with mutagenic waters, of course, and they have to take out the Baraki, which are like mutated fish creatures, which buy in stores now.
Buy in stores now. Now the Baraki, they're like from. Important thing that I forgot to mention is that everything either happens in 1 year or like 10,000 years. It's like a very wide scale of time. Things just live forever.
I say we've gone through millennia.
They're kind of warlords that inspired Makuta Pterodact to say, hey, I could do genocide too. They got defeated. They got banished to this pit, which is also a prison. And they want the Mask of Life because, you know, they're evil or whatever.
Yeah.
So the Toa Nika become the Mari in order to live in the water and fight them. They fight them off and they get the Kanohi Ignika. There is a catch. They can only restart the robot and jumpstart it if one of them sacrifices their life. So one of them dons the mask. And here's what they look like.
Yeah, those are what got me into it. Fucking
All right,
long
now we're going to try to see if this video works.
Actually, I don't want to open up in a tab.
Oh, this one's good.
No, we're
it's in the
I was
middle
getting
of
into this as the
no, we're
okay.
I don't want to get copyright
Okay,
strike.
fair enough. That was going to be a Toa and Nika ad. They play All American Rejects Move
Yes,
Along, and it's kind of
yes.
funny. I was going to ask, hey, which one do you think's going to die? I guess you know now.
So
Metru is
a Christ-like figure. So essentially, he's been tempted by the mask of life this entire time with like evil powers like mind control and raising the dead.
Yeah.
But he manages to stay pure of heart, and then gives up his life on the Kanohi
Restart the robot.
and the robot is restarted and comes back to life. But the robot is still in a comatose state, and there's this set of tasks that they have to do. Tasks, yes, just like Among Us. to restart this robot and bring it back to Bara Magna so it can stop this whole core war. So the Toa Nuva don these adaptive armor suits, which allow them to go into different biomes and fight these corrupted Avmatoran and other stuff. Essentially, they're just doing busy work to restart the robot. They're in two teams, the Mystica and the Fantoka, and they go to two different biomes. They released at two different times, so you could spend more money on toys, etc., etc. The trials are fulfilled after the Kanohi Ignika, the Mask of Life, inspired by Metoro's Christ-like sacrifice, and becomes a Toa itself somehow, and helps the Toa Nuva out in their struggles. But even though they succeeded at all of their Among Us tasks, the robot's still not going. So after learning the true meaning of friendship or whatever, and like duty and unity and destiny or whatever, the Kanohi Ignika, as Toa Ignika, learned to love the inhabitants of the universe, which also at any time, if he got mad, could kill. Forgot to mention that, that's important. The Kanohi Ignika, the Mask of Life, has the power to give life and take it away and genocide the entire universe. Oops. But he learned to love and sacrifices his sentience and the rest of his power to bring the robot back to life.
More toys?
More toys.
More toys. Yeah, so next. We're really hung up on that genocide.
So, you know how we like mentioned that the guy is made out of gas and he can like possess robots?
He possessed the big robot.
Yeah.
Pretty bad news. So
He set them up. The game was a setup from the beginning. And now Makuta Pterodax now plans to use his giant robot form to conquer planets without any resistance because he's a giant planet-sized robot, starting with Bara Magna. He also steals Mata Nui, the giant robot's normal soul, into the Kanohi Ignika Mask of Life and sends it off onto Bara Magna so it can't do shit. Everything is bad, everything is terrible, everything is not awesome. But when Mata Nui lands on Bara Magna, the desert planet that is just full of war and strife and is once again just Mad Max, he becomes Toa Mata Nui, the Toa of life, and fights to unite the battling tribes in order to fight this oncoming giant robot threat.
So this is when we get to the Infinity War of the Bionicle story. So we have the Great Spirit robot landing on Bara Magna, and the inhabitants escape, thankfully, but they are met by the Skrull, which are the stone tribe of the Glatorians, the Batera, robots that kill anything with weapons, and Toa Mata Nui's gathered friends. A giant war takes place on the planet. Toa Tahu gives up his Toa Nuva powers and his Nuva symbol in order to go on a quest for the golden armor, one of the MacGuffins that can hopefully win them the war. He does end up finding this, goes off like a true G, And then I'm calling a Bionicle a top G. I know, that's the whole point. And then, you know, underneath all the Agori villages, we actually find out that Metru Nui wasn't the first Great Spirit robot. There was another. They made a prototype of the Great Spirit robot, but it fell apart as they were launching it.
So, this is when I go on to another interlude. This is, for some reason, just the Challenger. They write it exactly like it's the Challenger, like the space shuttle that exploded, and I don't know why. That's really weird to add an in-universe Challenger explosion to your children's story.
Well, anyway, in our Challenger fanfic, we end up building the Challenger back and better and greater than ever, and we take out another rocket to show how good it is.
Metru Nui possesses this giant robot, and then it's giant robot fight. And he must destroy his former body in order to save the home of the beings that once kept himself alive.
We'll show some more toys.
Anyways, so once again, Christ-like figure. This story is, the fourth movie is just him doing the miracles of Christ on this desert planet. I'm not lying.
That's not right.
And the other one's like Rambo, but Lego.
And this guy's Rambo, but Lego.
Yeah.
So now we get to Endgame. So, Makuta falls and is completely destroyed by Metru Nui's newfound might. And Metru Nui isn't long for this world after this climactic battle. He used up too much energy, he got too injured. It's Jover, bros. So, he uses his final breath to fuse the 3 planets that got split back together into one, into Spherus Magna. And using the last shred of his energy, he infuses it back into the planet to bring life to this once barren world. And after years of millennia of war and death and genocide of toys and product moved in stores now, Matoran, Agori, and Glotorian can finally know peace. The biological chronicle has reached its end. But it's not Jover till it's Jover, and it's not Jover! Okay, so after they basically finished off the plot in this nice little bow, Greg Farshty, the guy who was writing all of this, decided to write some more after the fans asked him to, and he essentially left a list of unresolved plot threads, including the Red Star, which is this like giant satellite to the giant robot that can revive its dead inhabitants and like send them back down as like a maintenance thing, but that got messed up for some reason. Tren Krom is another Cthulhu that exists. There's a lot of them. He does like some weird mind control stuff.
Oh, they have Element Lords.
Yeah. The Element Lords, which are like another race of like genocidal fascists that exist in the Bionicle universe because I guess they didn't have enough made by the great beings. They're just roaming around. Literally every character we know is close to death, dying, dead. There's even more like robots that are meant to kill invaders on the planet, so they'll have to deal with those. There's the gold-skinned being, which is a bunch of Paraka and Skakti fused together into a being that can grant any wish against your will. Takanuva, the Toe of Light, just kind of goes on this like warp tour through different realities for some reason during Infinity War. Which is tied to the in-universe Suicide Squad, the Federation of Fear, that exists. And the Sisterhood of the Skrull, which are, again, those like rock tribe Glotorians that are evil, started a cult. All of the women started a cult, Let's Go Girl Power, in order to revive another Cthulhu, a Nona, to take away everyone's dreams again. So...
Also,
they essentially...
Don't forget Velika.
Oh yeah,
the
Velika.
one that kind of kicked it all off.
Velika, who gave them like a bunch of free will.
Quite literally, what if God was one of us? But then, what if God just never did it?
Yeah.
We like to say.
So essentially, they just left off this entire storyline with a bunch of loose threads that they could have avoided by never going back. But that
We like money. They like money.
This wasn't even for money. Greg Farsty was doing this out of his own volition. But I think that, left a lot of fans angry that the story went unresolved for so long, and even when it got rebooted, nothing happened. This is a reveal, you bitch.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I think there's something to it that maybe it's better that it ends off like this with a bunch of loose ends. It's, after all, a building toy. I mean, people should be able to build their own ending. This is the entire purpose. People can use these parts to make whatever wonky, freaky little guy they want. And I think they should be able to do that with the story of Bionicle. So really, the real biological Chronicle is the one you build inside your own head. It's not Jover till it's Jover, and it's not Jover till you let it be Jover. And it's not Jover, bros. That's from the Jesus Christ in the Bible.
Yeah,
I got sight.
That's cool. Oh yeah, so just like a little wrap up too, you might ask, why did we all sit here to hear about this thing? Why is it this much about a children's toy? I would love to answer that question. That is probably the one question we can't answer.
Yeah. So essentially, because Bionicle having this deep, rich lore made Lego a bunch of money, they decided to spread that lore against comics, video games, movies, and web novels and real novels, which eventually created a barrier of entry too high for, like a normal kid to just get into Bionicle, causing the death of the franchise. It got rebooted in 2015, and then it died in 2016 because, Lego didn't support it. And then it got kind of spiritually successed into Hero Factory, which is another set of little guys. My professor just brought. I've never owned a Bionicle.
Oh, wait. We can get the doc cam up for
Yeah,
this.
Wait, which professor has? Which one of our professors has Bionicle?
It was Dan.
Dan has
so he brought just this bag of, ironically, everything that's not Bionicle.
Oh, you got the doc cam working.
So this is a.
It's Hero Factory.
This is the show and tell portion.
All right, show and tell time. So this is a slicer / throwbot. This is like the precursor to Bionicle. They use the same handpiece. And essentially, you grab these discs and they throw them. These kind of sucked, so it didn't do well. They rebooted this kind of into Bionicle, did really well for 10 years, died out. They decided to make Hero Factory, which was like Lego.
Is that Preston Stormer?
It's Preston Stormer. I never watched Hero Factory.
No, Hero Factory is funny.
These were essentially Bionicle with no plot.
Oh, you got some.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that William Inferno?
Oh no.
That's his name.
Stop knowing Hero
I
Factory.
had the entire first set of Hero Factory.
William Inferno.
Dude, I remember when they had the 2.0s and those things melted my mind.
So, if you
Those are
want
so
the
cool.
quick rundown of Hero Factory lore, there's good guys and bad guys, and they fight each other.
And they're made in a Hero Factory. And that's just actually how it is.
William Inferno.
And
Is that just
A boy named William.
yeah, it's another throwback.
There's a little ride.
So this Toa Tahu, it was released in the 90th anniversary set for Lego.
Picture of the Suotahu. It's a little version of. Oh, but it's not showing up here.
Yeah, it was so it's like a little guy. It's like a cute little version to represent Bionicle as a part of Lego's history. It's cute. They recently did a gift with purchase set. We'll put that on screen in the video version of this presentation.
We both own it and spent over $100 in Legos to get it. Because we care.
We care.
It's the things we do for this franchise.
I personally, I have to admit, I've never actually owned a Bionicle toy.
He's making it right.
So essentially, chat, People just thought that I knew Bionicle lore, and it got annoying enough that I just had to learn it in order to tell people, like, what they needed to know. This was not of my own volition. This was something that I did as, I guess, another Christ-like figure of Bionicle.
Did for us.
This is the first thing. But you guys have all been great. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is amazing.
I was gonna say, any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, so many questions.
Are you guys on RateMyProfessor.com?
We can make an account. We can make an account.
Yeah. We can make an account. I don't remember.
All right. Yes. I'll just go front to back.
Why does the Throwbot have Hero Factory feet?
That's the question.
Because this was from our professor's kid. He probably mixed and matched parts. They were slightly compatible. There's another Throwbot actually that has its original feet.
Yay.
All right. You got a question?
Will this be on the exam?
Yes. So we will have an exam in 2 weeks. There is a Quizlet. You can find it online. I hope you guys can prepare properly with your other classes. If you need any accommodations, you can make an appointment with us on Navigate. So just contact us through your academic advisor. Yes.
Can you provide a Google Drive with all the movies so we can study the lore?
They're all on YouTube.
They're just on YouTube
For free.
For free. All right, we're snaking.
So how's this going to affect new students? Like, how do you want us to share this with them?
I imagine the same way that Jesus of Nazareth did.
Yeah.
Christ-like theming is kind of the word of the night. We'll go to you and then that row.
Does this satisfy our U.S. diversity credit?
Yes, it does. If it doesn't, it should. We learned about Povatorin,
I would argue it's also international perspective.
Lamatorin. All right, we'll get to you once we get to the end. All right, middle, you.
When a character dies, are they removed from stores?
So too many people died for them to do that, really. Yes.
If all 36 Matoka masks are available in stores, why were they so hard to find?
So Kenobi masks were released in these mask packs.
Little boosters, like how they sell the minifigures, and it's a blind bag, you don't know what you're getting. That's how they did masks.
So gambling for children, we know it, we love it.
If you want a fun activity, look them up on eBay.
Oh yeah.
Too much money.
Another
Too much
reason why
money.
I have no Bionicle. Oh no, and you with the sunglasses.
Is the exam curved?
The exam currently is not, but we were talking about, do you want to curve it if there's a certain score?
We could see. We'll talk with other professors. See how they
If the class average is under B, we'll curve it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we bring notes?
Yes, open note. Open note.
You can bring the movies.
You can bring the movies.
You can bring the movies, notes, comics, any.
Yes, you in the middle.
You are talking, okay.
Yes.
Out of all of the genocides, I think we had about 5 or 6. Which one of them was the worst Hitler?
So that would be one of them in another universe where all of the Toa were evil, and they caused Super Genocide 8. Like
Those were just named genocides.
we only covered like vaguely named genocides.
There are plenty others. In the back. Way
in the back, and then we'll get to you in the green.
Yeah, how will this affect LeBron's legacy?
So if he can collect all 36 Toa Nika, Hall of Fame. Absolutely.
Yeah, if he can collect all the Kenohi masks, like, sure. But I don't think he has the fucking arm of this Throwbot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's balling like a Throwbot.
Yes, you in the green, and then we'll get to you in the
We'll
orange.
shrink back up.
Bionicles built in universe, or how
Yes!
they were?
Yes, they are. Some are. The Toa Mata are their introduction. They build themselves because they are in fact made of Lego.
So the Agori Glatorian, they're semi-organic, they're like mechanically enhanced.
Yeah.
All of the Matoran universe are made of liquid protodermis from the great beings making them. So it's really dependent on if they're built or not, of what species they are. If it's in the Matoran universe, it's likely that they were built or at least caused to be put into existence from another being.
They all still look like Lego.
Orange and then blue.
Just like this event, will you be setting up official movie watching nights?
If there's interest.
If there's demand.
If there's demand, why not? We'll do it in like Student Innovation Center and really upset people.
I'll be looking for
Yes.
What will be the format of the exam?
Okay, so there are 40 multiple choice questions.
3 response essay on the ethics of the Makuta.
And then there's a few short answer questions that will just be here and there. I promise they'll be easy with open notes. You'll be able to ask them. They're really opinion based, so
Yeah,
it's just testing your knowledge and application of it.
The Metru Nui part's hard because you got to read 1984 for it.
Green in the middle.
During the time slip, when everybody's memories were erased, is there still written history?
I don't think so. I think the Order of Mata Nui got rid of that, so no one knew that the time slip could happen. There's still some markings of the Avmatoran transforming into Borok that got left. But since they didn't have the concept of Avmatoran, since that was wiped from their memory, they didn't really know what to do with it. You in the back?
Will we be studying Hero Factory for the final?
No,
separate class.
Hero Factory, you can write an essay on it for extra credit, I suppose, but honestly, that's a separate professor that teaches that class.
Yeah. That would be Construction 133.
Yeah. But that does cover a U.S. Diversities credit or a Humanities credit if you need to take that.
What's your guys' favorite Bionicle?
Ooh, that's a tough picture.
I mean, Kopaka easily looks the coolest.
He's a pretty slick guy. Pretty cool for being the Toa of Ice.
Matoro is a Christ-like figure. Gotta love that guy. I guess any of the Matoran that came in Happy Meals because they're just silly, silly little guys.
Yeah.
You had a question?
Is there any continuing spin-offs existing of Bionicles? Does Hero Factory still
No. So, Hero Factory was using the character and creature building system, which was discontinued in 2019. So they made Hero Factory, that didn't do well. They made some license set with Star Wars and Ben 10 with the system, and then they just kind of canceled it. If you want to see some more construction, building type stuff from Lego, I guess there's Ninjago, which has a bunch of mechs.
Ninjago's mech.
Marvel has mechs.
How about other brands?
I'm not sure.
Gundam models.
Yeah, just Gundam models. Yeah. All right, you. So you first.
Okay. This is great. I feel like I learned a lot. I don't think I did, but I feel like I did.
Good.
You'll have to wait till tomorrow.
Right. I'll have to process.
You'll have to wait after the drink.
Yeah, you gotta sleep it off. Hopefully, no one does.
So, as far as a follow-up to this, snap timeline breakdown plan.
Oh, you're asking a heavy hitter. We have a colleague in the business who has a FNAF lore timeline PowerPoint.
Are we doing FNAF next?
We can do FNAF.
We can do FNAF next. Who just cheered, you and then you. So you who just cheered in the black?
Rebecca. Me?
Yes, you have a question.
I do have a question. Do these things die naturally? Do they just
Sometimes.
live forever? How old is Pterodax? It seems like he's been alive.
Makuta Pterodax is thousands of years old. Sometimes they die of old age, but it's not really well explained.
Is this not when it happens?
You.
It's gonna be a nighttime exam or a exam.
Oh, we're not mean. We're not going to do a nighttime exam. If we do need to do a nighttime exam to accommodate your schedule, we'll talk about it. You in the gray?
Testing center.
So there's a reference in the Lego. So is the Lego Batman universe in the same universe?
So now the Lego movie universe is its own Lego universe because there's the one Ninjago movie which happens in the Lego movie universe as different from the actual Ninjago universe.
All right, I'll ask 5 more questions and then I think we'll call it for a night, or at least for the video because I don't want it to be too long. All right, we'll get you your new face for questions. You in the blue.
Okay. So is it like a multiverse? Are all of them parallel? Like the Lego movie to Hero Factory to
not
Chronicles to
really.
Yeah.
So
not inherently.
to repeat the question, are all of the Lego universes connected? Not really. The Lego movie universe is just real life, kind of Toy Story-esque. So it's not really connected. All of the Lego sets are canon in that, but they're not like the actual in-universe Lego sets. It's like a weird Toy Story if everyone was Buzz type of beat. And there's also multiple universes in Bonkle. All of those are parallel. You in the back in the Navy.
Yeah, are the sizes canon to the Bionicle universe? Are they not only their real-life predecessors, but their in-universe predecessors?
Unfortunately, no. But honestly, there are these things called the canonization contests. Since a lot of Bionicle characters never had a set because there's so many of them. And Greg Farshty, the main writer of a lot of Bionicle stuff, came back after Bionicle was long finished and said, all right, if you guys build these things, I'll judge them, you guys can vote on them, and then we'll officially bring them as the official appearance of Bionicle canon. And a lot of Slizer/Throwbot parts did get used in their builds, so they're kind of canon. You've had your hand for a long time.
Okay. So this is kind of a bit of a lore question. So the Fantoka got their ships into Codrex, but did the Mystica deserve more? Are the Fantoka too much of a favorite for the creator? Yeah.
I mean, you gotta give Toa Liwa something.
That's like a legit, not discounting the other questions, dang, extra credit for that.
Yeah. I think
we should have had a top hat.
Fantoka, Toa Liwa really deserved reparations since he did eventually get possessed by one of the Cthulhu creatures. So it's just a little slab of cheese that they throw his way. Cheese. He loves cheese, okay? Yeah, you. Yes.
Is love canon?
No. There is no fucking in the Bionicle universe. They cannot fuck.